let's make a game where you're a character and you can jump, and there are boxes that are flying at you, and you have to jump over the boxes. Alright, so I'm going to start out by creating a new class. I'm going to call it Game1. I do not want it to have a main method. I'm going to extend papplet, and I'm going to make the basic template for a processing game, the same way that we did before. So public void setup, public void draw. It's going to be 600 by 600. Okay, let's make our character first, and let's just make sure our character can jump the way that it's supposed to, and then let's worry about having objects fly at us. So the character is going to need an XY position. I don't want to have it have an X speed because I don't want the character to move back and forth. I just want it to be able to jump at a stationary way. So I only want a Y speed, that's all. Let's give it a width and a height, which I'm going to call W and H. And maybe that's all we need for the moment for our character. So let's set our X position to be maybe 100. Let's make the Y position be maybe 550. Let's have our height be, let's make the Y position maybe 510. And let's make the height be 50. And let's make the width be 30. So this is just getting our character set up. Where am I getting these numbers? What I'm doing is I'm imagining the coordinate system on the screen, and I'm thinking, I'm going to make my guy be like a little box. So width 30, height 50, so he's a little box. And I want him to be kind of at the lower left-hand corner of the screen, but not off the screen. And so that's where those numbers came from. Okay, let's just see if we can draw him there. So I'm going to draw a rectangle with the rect command at X, Y, width, height. And that should be enough to see him. So there he is. Seems okay for the moment. Later on, we might want to make the game be wider and shorter, or maybe we make our guy taller or something, but for the moment, that looks more or less okay. So let's figure out how to have him jump. I guess we want him to jump when the keyboard happens. I don't remember how to make the keyboard work. So if you're ever in the situation like me, you should always remember you can go to processing.org and look up the answer. So let's go to reference. That sounds like what we want to do. And I'm going to search for keyboard. And here in the reference page, we see keyboard. I'm just going to look at key here. And it says, okay, so here's the draw loop. Oh, okay, great. So this makes a lot of sense. It's saying if a key is pressed, see if the key equals a certain value. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that much and go back to my program. So here I am in the draw loop. If a key is pressed, so I want to see if the space key is pressed. I'm going to delete this other part. So if the key that got pressed was space, then what do I want to do? I want to test to see if just pressing space is working. So a good way to test is I'm just going to put a print statement in here. Worked. Notice that I'm not writing the whole thing before I ever test. I'm testing in little bits as I go along. This is a really good way to write your games because that means you can fix the errors when they're easier to fix. If I had 100 lines of code, it would be much harder to tell when something was going wrong. So let's run the game now. It's sitting there. I'm pressing. Oh, great. So I pressed the space bar, and it's saying worked. You know, it's saying worked a whole bunch of times, though. I wonder if key released is a thing. Nope. I'm going to do it a different way. Let's move this into its own method. So down here, public void Key released is a special method that runs whenever a key gets released. And I'm just going to have this part, the part that says if the key was space. The reason I'm doing this is because whenever I hit the space bar, I only want to jump once. I don't want to jump a bunch of times, and it was printing out worked a bunch of times. So now, whenever I hit space, this method is going to get triggered as soon as I release the space key. And that can only happen kind of one at a time, each time I press the space bar. So let's run it to make sure it works. Ah, great. So now you can see it's happening one at a time. All right, so what do I want it to do? I don't want it to just display worked. What I want it to do is I want to make my guy jump up. So if my guy is supposed to jump up whenever I press the key, I think we need to set his Y speed. So let's set his Y speed to be, let's see, if I'm going to be going up, maybe my Y speed is going to be -10. But remember, Y speed isn't magic. It doesn't magically make him move. If I run it right now, he's still not moving, even when I press the space key, even though his Y speed is 10. Because we actually have to use the number inside this variable to change his position. So let's do that inside draw. Here inside draw, I'm going to say y equals y plus y speed. So let's run it again. So here's my guy. He's not moving. I press the space bar. Oh, and he goes up. All right, well, one thing I forgot was we want to repaint the background every step. So let's say background 255. Because did you see how he was leaving that trail behind him? Now he's not leaving the trail behind him. Okay, but I don't want him to just fly away into space. I want him to fall back downwards again. So I'm going to need a force of gravity there also. So gravity is a constant acceleration downwards. And an acceleration is a change in speed. So to have my speed be changing to be faster downwards over time, I'm going to say y speed equals y speed plus a certain amount that's due to gravity, like maybe 0.2. Here we've got this problem where I've got to cast it to be float. Done. Okay, let's run it and see how that works. Oh, I don't know if you saw it, but my guy just fell instantly, which is kind of what I wanted him to do, because he's under gravity, right? So he should be falling. The problem is I want where he starts out to be the ground. Let's actually draw a ground there so that we can see it. Let's make a line from an x-coordinate of 0 and a y-coordinate of 510 to an x-coordinate of 600 and a y-coordinate of 510. And that's where the ground is going to be. I'm going to set the stroke to be black. Stroke is the line color. So here's the ground, and my guy should start out at the ground. Ooh, sorry, not 510. It's got to be 560, because that's where the ground is. Okay, so we want him not to fall through the ground. So let's do this. Let's say if his y-coordinate is greater than or equal to where he starts out. So if he's at, what is it? If he's at greater than or equal to 510, then I'm going to set his y speed to be 0. And I'm going to set his y-coordinate to be 510. So what this is saying is, if he ever falls a little bit below the ground, stop him falling and make him be directly at the ground. This is sort of like turning off gravity. It's not exactly turning off gravity, but it's negating the effect of gravity whenever he's at a particular y position. Let's run it again. All right, cool. Now he's just sitting there on the ground the way he's supposed to, and when I press space, he jumps. Cool, and now he's back at the ground. That looks nice. This is so entertaining already. So now all we need to do is have some objects flying at us from this side so that we can avoid them. And then, of course, you can go back and replace all this stuff with pictures. So make your, instead of a rectangle, make it a picture. Instead of just white background, make it a more interesting background. Maybe one that's slowly scrolling. All right, you know what? I'm going to pause it. I'm going to stop it here, and we can resume in the second video.